Hi, hello. How are you?
Hey, yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Fine. Hi, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hi. Hello. Hi, hello. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Hi, and welcome back for our episodes on story of words. And we have with us today Professor Upendran, who is the person that will help us understand the quirkiness of the English language. And perhaps in the process, we learn something new. Thank you for being with us.
Pleasure to be here.
We've heard a whole bunch of people say hi, hello, how are you? I've always wondered, is there a story behind this?
Yes, there is. When you think about it, hi, how are you, farewell, all these are a form of greetings. When do you say hi?
When I meet someone,
All right, and who do you say it to?
perhaps to someone I know somewhat well.
Someone that you know. And the word hi is mostly used in informal contexts. In the old days, how did people greet each other? Did they go around saying hi?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. They used to say, how are you? And the funny thing about this expression is, what are you asking the person when you say, how are you?
I suppose you're asking them, how well are you? How are you?
Right? You wanted to find out how they were. But when you said this, how did you normally say it? Did you say, how are you?
I don't think I've ever said it
No.
that way.
Most of them, when they saw each other, they simply said, how are you? How are you? And the other person understood what this person was saying, because we know or at least they knew when they saw each other, this was what they were saying. Nowadays, when you see somebody, what do you say? Good morning. But do you actually say good morning? Or do you say morning? Morning. You might be saying anything under the breath. All right, you might be cursing the person, but what the person will understand is, hey, he's wishing me, he's saying good morning, and you respond by saying good morning. And in the old days, they used to say, how are you? And they said it very quickly. And what happens when you say, how are you, very quickly?
It sort of contracts.
Right, so can you say, how are you, quickly?
I'll try.
Yes, please, go ahead.
How are you?
Go ahead,
How are
faster.
you? How are you? How are you? How are you?
Right. They used to see each other and say, how are you? Hiya, hiya, how are you? Hiya, hiya, hiya. How are you became higher.
I see.
Okay, how are you became higher. And then they said, higher is long. We'll reduce it to high. So higher and high are actually contractions of the expression, how are you?
That's interesting. Now, if how are you is hi, the Americans often say howdy.
Yes, but before that, what I'd like to add is, if you nowadays you say, hi, how are you? What is it that you're actually saying?
I suppose it's a way of greeting someone, really.
Right? But what you're actually saying is, how are you? How are you? Because you're repeating yourself.
Right.
But what most people have forgotten is, hi is actually a contraction of how are you? Now, going back to your question, howdy. Another way of greeting people, especially in the US, was, how do you do? How do you do? And when that was said very quickly, how do you do? How do you do? How do you do? Howdy, howdy. How do you do became howdy.
Right.
Okay? Now, as far as the British are concerned, there's a big difference between how are you and how do you do. What's the difference?
I am not entirely sure what that is.
Okay. When do you normally say, how are you? When you want to find out how the other
someone's doing.
person is actually doing.
Right.
At least in British English. When you say, how are you? You want to know how the person is feeling. So when I ask you, how are you? what would you normally say?
I'll probably tell you how I'm actually doing or
All right.
out
What
of
would be the
courtesy.
standard response?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good, thank you. I'm fine, thank you. Great or not good. Okay, these are the standard responses to how are you. But in British English, when you ask someone, how do you do? What is the standard response?
How do you do?
The standard response to how do you do is how do you do? It's like our namaste. When you say namaste, the person responds by saying namaste. In British English, how do you do is not the same as how are you. How are you is a question that you ask someone over and over again. Every time you see him, you can say, how are you? But how do you do can be asked only once, the first time you meet him. So when you say, how do you do? The response is,
How do you do?
how do you do? That's
I
it.
see.
That's it. And you will ask this question of a person only once.
Once.
It's when you are introduced to him or her.
So if I want to annoy someone,
Yes.
I don't just say, how do you do? I can ask it again. How do you do?
Yes. If you're an American, you might ask this question repeatedly because they don't make a distinction between how are you and how do you do. For them, both mean the same thing. It's in British English that there is this subtle distinction between the two form of greetings.
So it's a matter of etiquette.
It's a matter of etiquette, which not all of us have.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if that's, the story behind hi and how are you and howdy, I've always been curious about the word hello itself.
Well, before that, there is the word farewell.
Right.
Okay, farewell. That again, like how are you and how do you do, it's a contraction of the expression fare thee well. So when you say fare thee well, what you're actually saying is travel safely. So fare thee well, in fare thee well, the thee was dropped and what you got was farewell. So if you look at the various greetings that are used in English, they're all contractions. But sometimes a greeting resulted because of mishearing of a word. Take, for example, the word so long. When do you say that?
When you're actually bidding goodbye.
When you're bidding goodbye, you say so long. And native speakers of English thought that the Jews who spoke Hebrew, they were wishing each other so long when they took leave of each other. But the word that the Jews were using was shalom. Shalom was misheard as so long. Shalom in Hebrew means peace. This is what they normally say when they meet each other or take leave of each other.
That's right. That's right.
So they misheard shalom as so long and they started using the expression so long to bid goodbye.
Right.
And in fact, some people say it's not from the Jewish shalom, but it's from the Arabic salam.
Very interesting.
Okay, so your salam became so long. Now, coming to your hello.
Right.
So, as soon as you hear the word, what is it? What does it remind you of?
In the sense of a greeting.
Okay, it's a greeting. What else? When do you normally use it without really thinking?
I think maybe when I'm on a
When you
phone
pick
call.
up the phone.
Yeah.
Okay, when you pick up the phone, you automatically say hello or hello, whatever it is, whatever mood you're in, you say that word without really thinking about it. When you pick up the phone, you automatically say hello. And who invented the phone?
That's an interesting question for history.
Yes.
Alexander Graham Bell.
Alexander Graham Bell. And that's why it's called Bell telephones. Anyway, when Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone, when he picked up the phone and answered it for the first time, the expression that he used was ahoy there. And this was the expression that was used by sailors.
Right.
Okay, ahoy there. And Alexander Graham Bell wanted everyone to say ahoy there. But that was too long. And it was his rival. Who was his rival? The guy who invented many things.
Interesting. but
American.
Yes, Mr. Edison.
Mr. Thomas Edison. And Thomas Edison, when he picked up the phone for the first time, he merely said, hello. And when Edison used that, the telephone company came out with a manual on the etiquette of how to use the telephone. And there they said, when you pick up the phone, say hello. So Edison was responsible for the hello that we use when we pick up the phone.
And that hasn't changed one bit over the years, whether you know English or you don't.
Yes, that is true. But nowadays, of course, you have a lot of people just picking up the phone and saying, yeah, okay. So, yeah, there are lots of, there are a few minor changes, but whether you look at movies made in the 1940s, 1920s, or 2020, when a character picks up the phone, he says, hello, depending on the movie,
That's right.
right? So it's always a hello. Kannada, Hindi, Tamil,
It's always a hello.
it's always a hello.
Well, in this episode, we've talked about hi, hello, how are you, goodbye, farewell, and shalom. That's a whole lot for one.
That's a lot, yes.
And thank you for sharing this with us. And as we say, so long, farewell.
Off we didn't say goodbye.
Wait, don't go yet. We haven't yet talked about goodbye. Goodbye. What's the story behind that?
I think we should tell them the story of goodbye. Goodbye is very similar to hi. Hi, as I said, is a contraction of
Hi, how are you?
how are you. Hi is a contraction of how are you. Goodbye is what speakers said when they took leave of each other. And the original expression was, God be with ye. God be with ye, when said quickly, became God be with ye, God be with ye, God be with ye, goodbye, goodbye. And it became goodbye. And goodbye later became bye. And then kids made that too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So that's the story of goodbye. It is a contraction like hi, but this is a contraction of God be with ye. In other words, may God be with you. So may God be with you. Now let's say goodbye.
And on that happy note,
We'll see you when we see you.